Let's do this. We're already running out of time.
What?
Ah!
Good morning.
Hello. I'm already getting into the mood for the mid-long. Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Let's see.
And
Now,
I
where
didn't
were
say
we?
that well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, the pit of despair. Yeah. I know too many lines from this thing. Mary Annarella. Oh, I did my hair funny this morning. Let's just let that bobble around. Mary Annarella already did a quote about like a parody on that. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. And it's kind of cute. And sometimes it's a little over the top, but that's the fun about it. Oh my gosh. I think to me it's over the top because I just love my exact quotes from Princess Bride.
Yes.
So much. So, yeah. Hi, welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow. What?
Who are you?
No.
The Dear Becky and Lizzie edition.
I was waiting. She was just laughing at me. I'm introducing okay. Fair, whatever. I got off track before I even said who we are and introduced. And so I'm Rebecca. This is what I'm supposed to do, but I got off track before we even did the Sun Dragon. No, whatever.
It's morning.
I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in not as chilly, but not as warm as it's going to be tomorrow, Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there.
It's going to be in the low 60s tomorrow, I heard.
Yeah, it's going to be like 59 today.
And maybe the little stumps of ice and snow that are left around town will actually melt at this point. Maybe not, though. The solidified ice it's like petrified at this point, so probably not. Anyway, so hi, yes. I'm trying to like show my older sweaters some love, and since I started a Jennifer Steingass, this is my oldest Jennifer Steingass. This is called Winter Sol, and it is also the widest neck I think of almost any of my sweaters. Although the other Jennifer Steingass I made and the stripes might compete with it. The new one I'm making, which I don't think I have time to pull out. Actually, I don't think it's over here anyway. I think is going to have a tighter collar, which I'm very happy with. But it's like a fake I-cord collar. It's just a rolled collar. It's so exciting because it means I got into the color work really fast, which is exciting. That's the Avena. That's the one I'm trying. Yeah.
So getting into the color work super fast.
Yay, color work. I worked on it last night when I should have been probably making progress on older projects.
What?
No one is surprised by that.
Nope.
No, this is the one that like when I was making, I was like, oh, the collar's going to be so wide and I'm never going to wear it. And then I just got used to, you know what, my t-shirt's going to show because I'm not going to do super, especially in the winter time, more exposed like skin if possible. I'm rocking the whole layering look, and whether or not it some people might be like, I wouldn't do that. I have given up on caring.
It's all personal preference.
Yes. So
or how low is your I don't care bar?
My I don't care bar has dropped significantly during the pandemic. This was on needles and had been in timeout for quite a while during like when the pandemic started, and the pandemic is one of the things that got me to finish this one. So not that overrides all the crap from COVID, but little perks here and there, right? We've already started to have a run on the bamboo bloom that we talked about yesterday. So get it while you can. We'll order more if possible, but I cannot promise anything at this point because it's winter and people think winter means, oh, everyone's knitting, you must be rolling in it. No, winter is weird.
So weird.
It's like people maybe shop and knit in prep for winter. And why is someone calling us this early? We will call them back. Anyway, they might be calling to find out our hours, and in which case the answering machine will tell them. So we have to get to our stuff because we have
4 questions.
We had 2 weeks without questions, and now we have probably too many questions, but we're going to try to do them as much justice as possible. So we should probably get to it.
Get
I feel like
the questions and whatever questions we don't get to, we'll save them.
We'll
for-
roll over to next
Yep.
week. Yeah, absolutely. Or whatever ones we don't do justice to. And actually, that makes me think I want to look at one thing while Liz is pulling up the questions. If we don't do justice to them, we'll come back to them. I'm looking at one thing while you're. Whatever you want to do first, Liz. I don't.
Well,
remember
I'm
how-
going to, I send her either a screenshot or the actual question so that she's at least seen them. And then we don't look at them again until Thursday because show notes and you know us. So I'm going to start at the earliest one. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and the thing I thought I had, I don't have, but I have other things. So yes, go ahead.
So it's a fairly easy question. Or it doesn't necessarily take a lot of time.
Famous last words. Go ahead.
No. I mean,
Prove me wrong.
it could go for like 5 minutes, but it should be an easier question.
TikTok. No, I'm
I
kidding. I'm kidding.
Dear
I'm kidding.
Becky
Go
and Lizzie,
ahead. I've
how-
already wasted so much more time.
How
Don't worry
close
about
do you hold your stitches on your right and left needles? And do you think that makes a difference with your tension? Stitching is my jam.
it. Okay. One of my adages here in the shop is the closer your hands are, the fingers, whatever, and yarn are to the tips of the needles, the more control you have. It's one of the things as I'm teaching, as I'm working with people that I repeat over and over and over. I don't know if it definitely has an impact on your gauge, but I would imagine it does. Because was she asking about your stitches being close to the
How
needle?
close do you hold your knee, to the tips? Do you hold your needles?
No,
Oops.
the needles are the tips.
Well, I know but how close do you hold your stitches on your right and
That's
left
what
needles?
the stitches on the needle. So and the camera's too far away and we're not doing fancy camera work where we can zoom in and tell you and show you. And I would imagine that the further the stitches are away from the tips of the needles, the more safe you might feel, but the more you might have to yank and pull, and they're all connected. So if your stitches are way back here and you have to yank them to get the one closest to the tip off the tip of your needle, I would imagine that is going to affect your gauge. Not like horribly, right?
No.
But
And I would also say like crochet.
of course, this is like the one day she's not knitting.
No, I'm not.
She's
making
go ahead.
COVID balls.
Go ahead.
But like crochet, you want to actually finish your stitch on the working part of the needle. You don't want to finish your stitch on the tapered.
Yeah, well, like I think what she's talking about is once you move it up. So there's a balance because you don't want them to jam up on the tapered part. She's absolutely right, because then they'll be too tight and you won't be able to move them. But if everything on the holding needle is way back far away, then you're really yanking and pulling and you might be stretching out your gauge. So my solution to all of that, like if you look at my morning meditations and stuff, I jam stuff up, but my fingers are right there. So that when I'm knitting, I'm keeping everything pretty close to the tips, but my muscle memory has sought the balance where I'm not letting them ride on the tips once they're done. So I'm glad Liz addressed that. I hold things really close to the tips, but when it comes off, I make sure it's settled here. Like I don't even think about it anymore, but I make sure it's settled back on the consistent part of the needle, and I'm holding everything when I go to knit. Like if I just sit here and knit and talk to y'all, the finished ones are not riding up on the tip of my needle, but the ones that are coming at me are totally jammed up on the tip of the needle, but my finger is right here to make sure it doesn't fall off. And I think everything affects your gauge, but I also think you shouldn't stress about that because how you knit is how you knit. Like trying to I think between projects, you could try to modify how you knit, but and I'm gonna have to back this out because I should increase there, but I'm just showing y'all how I knit. I've got fingers back here to keep things from falling off. Trying to consciously pay attention to how you knit, like I was even having trouble describing it and doing it just now. Trying to consciously pay attention to how you knit while you're knitting a project and change how you knit. the consistency is probably not going to be there. It's something you want to practice on a mindless project, or one where you don't care about the size, like a scarf. Not necessarily, or this shawl, you know, like I have, my hand is firmly here behind all the stitches, and they only come off when I'm done with that stitch. But notice on this one, it's not riding up on the tip in terms of having that make the size super, super small. So I'm a really big fan of change the size of your needle, not how you knit. If you're concerned about that, you know, practice on something that it doesn't matter if it fits or not. So don't practice on a big, huge sweater you're making, because it's either going to come out. I just hit a spot where it's like, no, I don't want to come out of the ball anymore. It's either going to come out inconsistent, or it's going to settle back into the rhythm of your muscle memory, and it's not going to change the way you want it to. So,
and it takes time to
shift.
Didn't
you say that you like it was with crochet?
It was with crochet, but I spent 2 years.
So I'm going to see if I can jam in
knitting scarves and ripping them out, till all of my stitches, whether I was happy, sad, angry, whatever. But when I sat down, I wanted every stitch to look the same, because there are times in life where you start knitting or crocheting and you're tight.
Stress, lots of things can change your gauge.
But
it's not the end of the world.
Teaching my hands and tension, you know, my muscles, the control that it would need to be consistent, it takes a while. And most people don't want to take that long. And
I think that's a really good example of your I don't care bar.
Yeah.
Like, I think at this point in your life, your I don't care bar is in a different place than it was when you did that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, so yeah.
If I had it to do over, I probably no.
All right. I've slipped back to where I should have done an increase, and I am going to try to jam in. This just comes with lots and lots and lots of practice. I'm jamming in an increase because that's where my I don't care bar is. I'm not backing out of what I just knit in front of y'all because I don't want to have to redo it. So, but I'm going to try knitting while we answer questions. This is going to be, because you're not knitting. Someone's got to be knitting, man. No, I'm kidding. You're still working on something. So you're still being creative.
Are we good on?
I think we're okay. And person who wrote in, if you feel like you wanted to hear something more or different from us, let us know and we can follow up next week. But yeah, I'm a big fan of, like, when I teach people, they'll try holding the needles back here, and I'm like, no, your hands are part of your tools. It's not just the needle. So my hands are up here.
Yeah.
And I am doing stuff with my hands most of the time. I mean, aside, I know we have to get to other questions, but an aside on that, I'm a left-handed person in general. But I knit English style, which is holding the yarn in your right hand. And I am not a big fan of, well, a lefty has to do things this way and a righty has to do things the other way. Or like, I can't teach you, like someone saying to a lefty who's a righty, I can't teach you to knit because you're left-handed, because you use both hands. And it's not necessarily, well, if you hold your yarn in your right hand, you can't do that if you're left-handed. First of all, lefties need to have had to persevere in a right-handed world anyway. And so most of us are more adaptable than you think. And so righties are adaptable too. It's not to say righties aren't. It's just that the world's set up for righties. Anyway, and it's an ambidextrous thing. I think knitting, crocheting, all of it is an ambidextrous thing, in that you're using both hands for both skills. And so holding the yarn, like, your left hand can end up doing more work than your right, even if the right is the one holding the yarn. You figure out ways to make it work. But if a lefty can use the same techniques as a righty, like if you look at knitting as knitting, not as a right-handed thing or a left-handed thing, then learning a way that is widely recognized or widely taught is just beneficial, rather than trying to flip everything around, because then you can just do what everybody else is doing, if that makes
Makes it
sense.
easier to read patterns. and
Read
actually do
patterns,
it.
watch videos, get help, all of that stuff. If you treat it as it's not a right-handed or a left-handed thing, it's just a craft.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And as a righty in a lefty world, I cannot no longer wind yarn on a winder right-handed.
Well, that's true. That's one thing that's different is I make her use this hand to wind to crank the winder. So you know, she's built up muscles in both hands anyway. So yeah. But just because I'm a lefty doesn't mean I knit like continental holding the yarn in my left hand. I knit English
I'm a
style.
righty who knits continental, and you're a lefty who knits English.
I really don't. Yeah, I really don't. It's most of those are based on geography and based on where those areas like spread or learned from. It has nothing to do with if someone's left or right-handed. So just to like address that kind of rumor. I mean, I also know lefties who cannot, like their brain makes them do things a certain way. And we tackle that as it comes. But I think if you approach it as a craft, not a right-handed or left-handed thing, you can do it.
Yeah.
So, all right.
All right. The next question. Dear Becky and Lizzie, I am having trouble with my floats in my color work. Even though I think I am knitting, the stitch is very loose. The fabric is always too tight. Any suggestions? Also, what is the difference between color work, Fair Isle, and Intarsia?
Oh, that's a fun one too.
Has Lizzie found a pattern that both cables and color works? Thank you for your help. Lost in a sea of floats.
Okay, let's go backwards through those things because I want to get my color work sweater.
Yes.
Have you found a color work cable?
I have not found, like, there are patterns that the garment, the shawl, the whatever has both color work and cables, but in two separate sections. Like nobody so far that I know has mixed them. I am still in search of that.
I think it's doable, but I also have the whole like, but why?
Well,
I mean, it could be cool, but still, I'm like,
I found brioche cables, but I want color worked cables, and so far as I know, I have not found them. So that.
All right, so let's go. We're going backwards, so that means next we're going to talk about the different
color work, Fair Isle, and Intarsia.
Where do you think my snowflake hat is?
Which?
The Dawson one.
Oh,
that no, that's not traditional.
Probably over by the Dawson.
It might be. Okay, so what can you say about that?
So
I think I moved it from being over.
Color work is the, like, from what I understand, color work is the overarching, anything you're changing colors in your pattern is color work. There's mosaic, there's stranded, which is sometimes called Fair Isle, but sometimes Fair Isle depends on location the pattern is written or who's doing it.
Kind of, yeah.
But mosaic and stranded color work or Fair Isle are two color works, and then that you carry
honestly,
the yarn.
I'm not sure if mosaic is actually color. Yes, okay,
it's color work.
It's all color work, definitely.
It's not mosaic. Even Intarsia isn't necessarily stranded.
It's not.
Intarsia is color work.
Yeah. It's all where you have more than one color happening.
Yes.
I would call it color work. Mosaic is where only one color is being held in your hand at a time. So it looks like that's not okay. I'm just running around like we didn't prep for this, people. So it's okay. Where is just to show off a different one. So this is Cheryl Faust chains, and she loves mosaic. So this is made. It looks like it's stranded, like there's two colors doing things at the same time. But this was created by one color is going across and back, but it's slipping stitches on the row before, which was a different color, creating the effect of two yarns doing things at the same time. But only one yarn is doing is being held in your hand. I call it fake Fair Isle, because you're not holding two strands, because we're about to get to that. So I like mosaic and slip stitch work because it's not as complicated. You still got to pay attention, but it's not as complicated. And you tend to go over and back like this. You go over and back with the black and then over and back with the white. And depending on which stitches you knit and slip, you have different effects, but it can look really, really cool, right? And then there's the complexity of Fair Isle and stranded color work. So I know there's other, it's like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares type of deal.
Yeah.
Right. Like 4 sides, it's a rectangle, but some, when they're equal, it's a square. So stranded color work in general refers to when you are holding 2 colors on the same row. And you can do it by holding one color in each hand. You can hold both colors in one hand and flip between them. Anytime that you are knitting both colors in the same row, 2 of one, 1 of another, 2 of one, 1 of another, but they both have to go around the row, that is stranded color work. Fair Isle, I used to call all of it Fair Isle. And some of that, I think you were saying geographic location is where the name came from. It has settled into becoming the name of more traditional style, like a certain style of stranded color work. Like this might be considered Fair Isle. Yeah. It's a certain traditional repeated pattern. You can also do things with Fair Isle, like the one I'm working on is going to have branches that it's a Jennifer Steingass. Like this is not necessarily by some to be considered Fair Isle, because it's not a traditional pattern. It's one that she made that she has a lot that are variations on a theme, but it doesn't fall into the traditional, you could probably find it in a book from 100 years ago type of pattern. So the general title of stranded color work has become more well-known to be talking about if it's stranded. So there's strands going behind other pieces. This mosaic has strands too, but they're usually a lot shorter and a lot less noticeable. Like the back of this looks different. It's hard to see than the back of this. So, but stranded color work, if you see that on a listing for a pattern, it probably means you're working at least 2 colors at once. You have to keep track of them on the same row. You're not letting one stop and only going with one and coming back to it for the majority of your piece. So, and we'll come to floats again in a second.
What's the most amounts of colors used in a row that
I have no idea that I have seen?
That you have seen?
Maybe 4 or 5. I've done 3. I think I might have done 4. I think I've seen things online that have more than that. But traditionally, like if we go back to Fair Isle, it's only 2.
Yeah.
You did your sweater where you did 3. Did you go up
3.
to 4? Okay.
No, I did 3. My fisherman's cap was 2 for the majority, and there were a couple of rows that had 3.
Mm-hmm. Usually if it's 3, it's only used sparingly in most traditional type patterns and stuff. So, and then Intarsia is different. Intarsia is where there's a block of color and the strands don't run across. It's usually like you've got white on one side and there's a red apple in the center of your sweater or something, and you crisscross and only go across with the red, and then you pick up with another ball of white over here, and then it's easier to do that one flat because you got to go back, and if you don't want the white to strand across the red, you have to have a ball on each side and that kind of stuff. In the round it gets a little complicated unless you're flipping back, it gets complicated if you're trying to do that.
But you're not carrying the floats all the way around.
Yes, which is why it's not stranded color work, because you're locking where one yarn picks up and you're leaving the other yarn over there. But then you have to make accommodations for that. So usually when there's little bits of color, that's probably what's going to be happening is Intarsia. So There's a few other different color work things, but those are the really big ones you'll come across right now. So my deal with floats, can you read the very beginning of the email again? I want to make sure that we're like addressing it correctly, and not leaving out her specific question.
I'm having trouble with my floats in my color work. Even though I think I am knitting those stitches very loose, the fabric is always too tight. Any suggestions?
And it's not necessarily about keeping your stitches loose, although I work on that too. So I've got one color here and one color here. I try not to like keeping stitches loose. Yes. I try not to like yank really hard on my tension. That's one thing, is to keep your tension, try to relax your tension a little bit. But it's the float, and again, I know this is really far away, but the float that I've just done 3 of my darker color, and this guy now has to go. This is the one where you want to be as loose as possible. The other trick I saw in a nitty pattern a really long time ago is try to stretch your stitches out that you finished, that's on your right needle, as much as possible. And then also make your first stitch as loose as you know, don't try to overthink it too much. Overthinking often leads to things being all hobbly wobbly. So I have a float here that, and then when you push it down and it's all jammed up here, all these floats I have to ignore if they look super, super, like I can look through these at you, but that's because they're all jammed up on my needle. I want to make sure that when I spread them out, and the other thing I'll say is if you look at this right now, as I'm working with it, this looks bunchy. So even though my floats are really loose, it still looks bunchy. That will be fixed by blocking some of it.
Or just by wear and fondling, because
that's Liz's version of blocking.
Well, no, your golden fern that sat on the table,
it relaxed
and got
and stuff.
fondled like every day. It all kind of settled and relaxed. And
so this one, here's another trick that I do for my contrast. I do my 2 holding the yarn in 2 hands. Here's another one I do. My contrast up here was only used once. When a color is only used once every like 6 stitches, and then the other one does 6 stitches, there is the danger of that one stitch being pulled and you almost don't even see it if your floats are not loose enough. So my other trick, because I hold my contrast in my left hand, is I put my finger behind the float as I'm knitting my next stitch. So let me see if I can get this. As I'm going to do this, my finger that creates extra space in the float. So I'm going to knit this one, but my finger is creating extra space. And then I'll let go of it. And then this one's only going behind 1 stitch, so I'm not as worried about that. And then this, I've got 1, 2, 3. And this guy, since he's reaching over, there's no real way I mean, I could maybe try to put my thumb in there if I wanted to make that loose, but I just try to keep this one loose. It's more, if you're doing the 2-handed knitting, there's ways to stick fingers and things and make it a little looser.
And some patterns will call for a bigger needle. Some patterns, a good written pattern will have a specific gauge for your color work and your stockinette, because your color work should be.
That's true. It's another thing. Although if your floats are really tight, a bigger needle may or may not help. But yeah, this one didn't. This one just wants me to do it all in the same. But again, my contrast that's doing single stitches, I'm keeping in my left hand so I can make the float really loose so it won't suck that single stitch way back, because it won't even look like a stitch sometimes for a little bit.
I knit with both hands.
Take that down. Do that. Yep.
I knit with both hands for color work. And I don't even twist it around my fingers, really. I just let it flow through my hands just to make sure it's super loose. Like, lose all sense of tension.
Yeah. And like I said, some of this looks a little puckery, but I'm not super concerned about it because I'm going to block it when I'm done. And sometimes blocking with wear, like Liz said, can be really helpful. So those are our tips right now, is make sure these are stretched out. That's the easiest one. Is really make sure that it's super stretched out when you go. So this one, make sure it's stretched out before I go. And then don't freak out if when you jam your stitches up, your floats look like they're like octopus spaghetti, whatever. Just let it be. Like this one, Liz is looking for the next thing. This one, I've got some super loose floats in a lot of places, and I just let them be like between some of these stitches. It's super loose, and it might get yanked by my rings when I put it on and stuff, but I just try to let it be. So
our next one.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Dear B&L, how did you two meet? How long have you known each other? I love your friendship. And knitting related, Liz mentioned she has something like 150 works in progress in one video. I thought I had a lot. How do you keep track of where you're at in a project so you can pick it back up? Or do you not? I waste so much time when I come back to a project because I can never remember where I was or what I was doing.
I want to go backwards to those two.
Yeah.
Because, I think we have different answers to that, the last part. Like sometimes I keep track and sometimes I don't.
Same here.
Yeah. And sometimes I have to go back to it and go, where was I? What? And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I love this one. I know, and pick right back up again. If I was more organized, I would make notes on my pattern, like what size needle. And sometimes I try to keep needles together. So if I'm working on the ribbing of the bottom of a sweater, the body sweater needle, I try to keep in the same bag, that kind of thing. But often that doesn't happen. And I have to guess. And sometimes I guess wrong. And, it's life. And, oh, look, I've got a weird. Okay.
I tend to leave all of my needles in my projects. It's hooks that don't necessarily always stay in my projects, and that's sadness.
It's sadness, but you don't count those as works in progress. But at the same token, if you take out the needle, if you take out the hook and then go back to it, I would be like, oh, sadness.
Because I don't write down what size hook I used, and I always go up. So that's a problem. I try.
That's called fudging it. And where's your I don't care bar? Right?
I try and either take a picture on my iPhone, iPad, whatever.
That's more organized than me.
Of my pattern, but then it's like,
then you have to go find it.
Did I take a picture of that?
You have to you have to remember to favorite it maybe, so you can find it again. And,
so that's a problem. The other thing is a lot of times I wind up picking up a work and going, okay, Rebecca taught me how to read stitches. So
yeah, sometimes it's reading stitches.
How many stitches across do I have? How many stitches? Where does that fall in the pattern? Like, counting sucks. It's more than just hard. It sucks. But there's a lot of times I have to actually count how many stitches I have on my needles to then go, okay, I should be somewhere in here, but there's a whole paragraph. So then I have to, it's investigation always.
Well, and I've had people bring in stuff saying, I don't know where I am in this pattern. And then I have to do the same thing I do for myself, which is like, okay, the last row, I have to read the stitches under the needle to say, it looks like you did a knit 2 together. And then you did 3 knits and 1 purl. Which row matches with that? I had someone bring a blanket in and said, I had to pull out a few rows. I think I'm on this row. Or like, can you take it back? I messed up. Can you take it back? And then what row am I starting on? And I had to use the pattern and read the stitches and figure it out. And I like a puzzle, so it's fun, kind of. But but I like a challenge, so I'll take that on. But it is like I have my botanical lace scarf that some of you may remember from eons ago that I only pick up when I can really focus. Like I haven't made much progress on it. I haven't worked on it in months. I'm going to have to go back and really carefully examine the stitches and figure out what row I'm on to pick it back up again, because I didn't mark it. I could. A lot of my patterns I do from, they're on my phone. And I've only recently figured out that I can actually mark up things in my books on my phone. And I really should. It's just like, I should be putting all my projects on Ravelry, and I should, I should is a shame word. It doesn't like I learned this from my therapist. It doesn't actually help you accomplish something because it makes you feel bad that you haven't done it. So I could do all these things and I haven't. And they're all things that would like, it's a slippery slope of, if you're not already organized, sometimes it takes a lot of time to get that way, and it feels overwhelming if you haven't done it, and then you keep beating yourself up that you haven't done it. Exhibit A. So I would say baby steps. Like, when you have a chance, when you put a project down, find a way to mark on your phone, in your notes, somewhere on the pattern itself, where you're at, if possible. Some people are really good at that. I am not. I'm really good at.
I try, but
Mhm.
it's like with row counters. They're all only as good as your ability to use them.
Mhm.
And it's not really your ability, it's your remembering to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, little small victories. Maybe you don't do it for all your projects, because it can feel like overwhelming if you haven't started to try to start. But we do a lot of trying to read patterns, and are trying to go back to our projects and figure out where we are and what's going on. And it takes extra work to do that way too. So moving to how we met. We met because of the yarn shop, and we've told this story before, but instead of having to dig back through all of the episodes to find when we talked about it, we can say it again. It's bring the new listeners up to date. We didn't lock the door. Nope. So we're not gonna. We just had a customer walk in about 7 minutes before 10, and which means we need to wrap up soon. And we asked them to come back in 10 minutes. And I feel bad doing that, but like, we need to finish up with you guys. So we're only gonna have time to answer this. We had one more question we're gonna have to hold off till next week on, to do it justice instead of rushing through it. So, and maybe I can find some help for that answer a little. No, you would think we've known each other for years. We have, but only 4, right?
Yeah.
So 4-ish.
I met you like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before the shop opened.
I was unpacking yarn, and a friend of mine who helped me find a place to live around here, who worked for the rental agency I got my home from, brought you over to introduce you.
I was waiting for the dog to get groomed, taking my monthly walk through
because at that point she only came into town once a month.
Yep.
And I remember being like, oh, it's this lady in a big floofy dress. Hi, who are you? Nice to meet you. You know, it was a little bit like, yay yarn, but hi, on my end. Yep. And I was stressed and trying to open the shop, and just, we
talked for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. You unpacked Yarn Baby.
Yes.
And I was like,
indie dye, lovely yarn.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to be back. When do you open?
Yeah, but she also told me she was only in town once a month. Yep. And then you kind of moved in.
Yeah.
You at least started hanging out in the shop, and then said, if you need help, I could potentially come work for you. And I was like, no, I don't need employees. No, I can't handle that. That's too much. I
was volunteering a lot before that.
Oh yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, because I needed help.
Would walk in, you would go help them, and paid attention to everything she said. And then because somebody would come in looking for yarn, and I'd try and remember what she said about the yarn. And yeah.
And then I decided to make a clean start. I was like, okay, I guess we could try this. I'm still like, oh gosh, employees, what? Like, new business owner, freaking out about everything. And so I opened in August, and she started working for me in January to make like a clean start, right? And that was January of 2018.
Yes.
Because I opened the shop in 2017. Math. And we kind of became a unit in the shop. And it was your sister who joked about the Liz and Rebecca show, right?
My sister came to visit, and I was like, you've got to come see the shop. And I walk in the shop, and it's the Liz and Rebecca show. And Mary was like, well, that was exciting, the Liz and Rebecca show. And
that's where the name came from. And we're just good friends. Sometimes people think we're sisters, which I think is funny, because I don't know if I banter like this with my sister. I love you, Rachel.
I don't banter like this with my sister, really, but like,
we're just really good friends. So, which is neat, because we're we're similar in some ways and we're really different in other ways, and we make it work. You know, sometimes we make it work because we don't talk about certain things, but we talk a lot about other things, about like everything else. So yeah. And I couldn't run the shop without her. And
I don't want to own a shop. So.
And she doesn't want to own the shop, so she keeps me alive. No, and yeah, it's like we balance each other out. And we're getting close enough that we can let the machine take that, but we should answer it soon. I've got about 3 minutes to 10, so we are going to wrap up, but I have a few announcements. We have knit night tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. On Zoom with the shop phone number
828-877-3550.
We have Sunday dual platform sit and stitch, which is on Zoom and also on Facebook Live. If you just want to see what's happening, kind of hear what's happening on Zoom, on Facebook Live. And that is from 1 to 5 p.m. These are all Eastern Standard Times, East Coast time in the US. I also wanted to mention that we have a sale happening starting tomorrow. We're doing a Valentine's Day sale, and it is online and in the shop, but the shop's only open Friday and Saturday for the sale. But the sale goes Friday through Monday. So it's the 11th through the, I think Monday's actually Valentine's Day, right? The 14th. And it's the code, I believe the code is LOVEYARN is what I set it up for. I wrote it down for a different thing we were doing. I think if you put in the code LOVEYARN, but I will put this in a description. This is one of the ones I can release in the description because everybody knows about it. You will save 20% off if you use the code LOVEYARN Friday through Monday on your entire purchase. You can't combine codes. And we'll ship things out as soon as we can. So I think that's it from all of us. The lady who came in is waiting for us, so we're going to try to get the door open for her. So we got to get our masks on. So have a good weekend. We love y'all.
Like, subscribe, ring the bell,
all that good stuff. We're trying to head towards 800 subscribers now. Whee! Bye, guys. That's my New England side. Bye to everyone. Bye, y'all. That's my Southern adapted.
All y'all.
All y'all. That's my adopted Southern side. Okay.